Please welcome New Hollywood Power Players, The Rise of Creators on TV, moderated by Cynthia Littleton, co-editor-in-chief, Variety.
Thanks for sticking with us. Appreciate it. Want to introduce our new panelists real quick here. This Samsung TV Plus is such a great fulcrum for a lot of what we're talking about. So we're so excited that you could join us here. Next to me here is Ryan Wilson, Managing Director of Sales for Samsung Ads. Evan Shapiro, who you just met and were wildly impressed by because he's really smart. Next to Evan is Rishita Patel, Head of Partnerships for Mark Rober's Crunch Labs. And Mark Rober is one of the busiest creators and most popular folks on YouTube. And next to Rishita is Takashi Nakano, Vice President of Content and Programming for Samsung TV Plus. And Takashi, I don't know how you all manage. You have so much content under that umbrella. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I'd like to, with representing Mark Rober's company here, really want to drill down into Samsung TV Plus and Samsung Ads have gone really, really hard in the past year and have more plans into the creator economy, drafting off the energy, the excitement, the buzz, the most authentic word of mouth that can be found in this incredibly creative, in the explosion of creativity well outside Hollywood and New York, the traditional hubs. And so I'd like to start with Takashi or Ryan. Can you talk about just when you started to crystallize the idea? You have created fast channels, and I know folks here know what fast channels are. You've created fast channels around some of the biggest names, including Rober's content, to really bring that to the living room, as one of our earlier panels talked about.
No, thank you, Cynthia, and thank you, Variety, for having us. It's been an amazing transformation for us, and I think when we launched Samsung TV Plus in 2018, we didn't know where this was going to go and how big this could become, and even today, we don't know how big it's going to be, but we're excited about the opportunity, and we're deeply invested, and we think that there's this. And this has been true for television forever. Creators, which we define today as people that create content, but we've had creators forever, right? Anyone who's been on TV is a creator. Martha Stewart is a creator. From day one, she's been a creator.
I have to admit that for a little bit, I sort of bristled at the term because I said the same thing. What's the difference between Chuck Lorre and Hannah Stocking? I now know the difference between Chuck Lorre and Hannah Stocking.
But it's true, right? I mean, we look for great talent, great storytelling, people that resonate in fans, in fandoms, and what we want to do is build fandoms, not just latch onto fandoms. And to Evan's point earlier, Portlandia became a place of fans. It became a fandom. So that's what we're interested in, and we partnered with Rishita and Mark around Crunch Labs and their content because they have a base of fans, and we think that the way they create content really resonates on a television platform. That's what I think about. I think about TV and and again, if you look across YouTube and you look across all the creators, not everyone is going to be right for television. Not all content makes it on TV. But who are the ones that create content in a prolific manner, who are engaged with the data, who can adapt and change quickly and produce relatively inexpensively in this new world, and put stuff on TV and have people come and watch it. That's an art, and that's a science that's mixed together that traditional media has struggled with. And so we love the way they've broken the traditional business and the way they think about content. And again, I think YouTube has proven that people love content that is it's not just YouTube. We're not just scraping YouTube and putting it on TV. We really are looking for storytellers, authentic storytellers, who people love, who we think are going to resonate on a TV platform. And we think that television is a great way to kind of showcase their storytelling and their art.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Rishita, I'd love your perspective on what the partnership, I know it's still relatively early days, but what the partnership with Samsung has meant for Mark Rober and your business.
So Takashi's spot on. We are all about the data with our content. And one of the big things we have learned over the years, Mark has grown this incredibly authentic and organic audience, but it is a co-viewing audience. It's a family audience. And being present in the living room and expanding our audience that way, made a ton of strategic sense for us. So we knew FAST was going to be part of our strategy for last year, and then it just came down to picking the right partner. And for us, Samsung made a ton of sense because of the technology investment, the aligned interest in STEM, and the idea that it is lean back, but there's so many opportunities to still make it lean forward and expand, and, like whether it's extended cuts or different features of the platform that allow our consumers to engage. It just felt like a perfect home. So this partnership has been great for us because it allows us to test our content in new ways, but also reach the wider co-viewing audience. We've done well on YouTube. It continues to be a home for us, but we are so excited to invest in content that we know is going to perform really well in the living room.
Can I jump in that? Because it ties back to something we were just talking about, which is put it everywhere, right? I think there is a misperception amongst creators, and it's so odd because it's the reverse of mainstream trad media's fear of YouTube, is it's going to cannibalize my audience. And I think creators have the same thing. It's a yes and. It's additive. And my company works on 2 projects with Takashi's team, the Letterman channel and the Dhar Mann channel. To your point and your point, both creators, right? And in both cases, the audiences on Samsung TV Plus have only enhanced the presence of the channels of these 2 huge creators on both Facebook and YouTube. So it is the new syndication model. It is syndicate to every fan you can possibly get to, no matter where they are.
Here's an interesting point. I think that we recently did a partnership with the Jonas Brothers, and people wouldn't say that they're creators by a YouTube definition, but
that was a live concert, right?
That was a live concert, and we streamed 6 live concerts with them. And were we going to cannibalize future shows? Were we going to cause people not to buy tickets and go see them live? We didn't know, and they didn't know, but they jumped in and said, "Let's try this." After the first show, what they've told us is that they started seeing their Twitter handles, X handle, start trending. Instagram started trending. And what's really interesting is that they started selling more tickets for future shows. And they added 20 shows on top of their tour, right? So it was an accelerant to their business. And they're not creators as we would have defined it 10 minutes ago, but they really are. They create art, they create music, they're talented, and they create every day in their machines.
But I think that's where fast channels like TV Plus, right, opens up the door for new leaned-in younger audiences, which is 100%. Incredibly powerful and important. But not only that, it's also opening up new ways to engage with audiences, not just on the single phone, but on the largest screen in the home, which, to Rishita's point, now it's co-viewing, right? And now it's more personal, which I think is a bigger aspect of it as well.
And Rober, I mean, I'm sure you know, when Rober started to come into the picture, he's so brand friendly. This content is smart. There's nothing you couldn't watch with your grandmother or your kid. He's so good, and he's just so good. I wish he had been my junior high school science teacher. I might have pursued a different career path. But I'd love to draw you out a little bit more on what even using Rober as an example, what makes sense for television versus, if you've encountered, what would really make sense for the Samsung TV Fast channel, but wouldn't make sense on YouTube or vice versa? Or is that not, those distinctions are blurring at this point?
I think we're still working through them, but there are, we are considering doing more live, and that's certainly a home for TV. What makes Mark fantastic is he collaborates really well with other creators, and I think people like to see the full, Avengers army of creators together, and finding a home for them on the big screen really helps expand their audiences. But it's still a little blurry. We are figuring it out, but it's nice to have gone to a platform that can do that collaboration together and decide on what the model ends up being. I don't think we'll necessarily be, platform specific ever. It is about distribution and reaching audiences where they are, but testing certain things first is exactly what we want to do this year.
And I think from the live perspective with the Jonas Brothers, for example, in the last concert that they had, there was actually a poll for those that were watching to choose the final song. So it drives deeper engagement as well, which I think is incredibly powerful and important. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think what's crucial there is not only are you doing it wisely, but you're doing it inexpensively for you. So you're venturing onto a new platform, in both cases without creating brand new content, right? The same is so for Letterman. We're talking about an old library, 20 years old, of late night talk show. But because YouTube is now replacing daytime TV, as the New York Times just recently wrote a good article about, you've built a late night block on Samsung TV Plus with Conan O'Brien and David Letterman. It's the digital late night block. And I think that is going to find new audiences, not the same Dave audiences serving the fan, but building new fans as well.
And I think just sticking with the Letterman, it is, within the entertainment industry, Letterman, when he made that move to CBS, he had the most leverage of probably, any TV talent at that time. This was the early 90s. He got to own his show, and that was that put him on a pedestal, and that's why he can do that Letterman. He can do the Letterman channel. He got to own the show. All the CBS Late Show, not the NBC years, but the CBS Late Show years.
The NBC stuff, they came on board, and now that's all part of the channel as well.
Why not, right? This is found money for NBC. But interesting that now, so Letterman, he was on a pedestal. That was a pinnacle. That was a moment in time. Darman, Mark Rober, Hannah Stocking are the David Lettermans. They own their content. They even control it more than David Letterman did with all that leverage.
The point I would make there is that because they are different audiences, a different audience watches Samsung TV Plus. There's a lot of crossover, but the folks who are going to find you on Samsung TV Plus are additive. That's what Dar is finding in droves well. That's what Dave is finding in droves as well. And so you can just put the content in two different places because it's two different audiences and it's two different revenue streams, importantly. So that's important for the IP holder. And the other thing is you own all your content. Dave owns all that content. That's crucial, and that's a huge part of this affinity creator economy mindset.
But really, in Hollywood, there's so much talk about in the creative community. There's, the monetization, the remuneration has been less fulsome than it had been in the past under the traditional model. But again, people are missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah, but your business isn't about ad dollars, is it? Really? I mean, you have a completely different business model than just selling ads on YouTube and on TV.
It's spot on is what I was thinking of. Our business is multifaceted. So we have the content arm, but we also have retail and D2C toys that we sell that are designed by Mark and a team of product designers that we have recruited thousands of applicants and found the right ones to build the best kids STEM toys. We're taking that into retail. We have books, and then we have experiential. Everything we do content-wise drives to all of these different elements of our business. So then the platforms we work with also have to complement all of those arms. When we launched on Samsung, within 24 hours, we got inbound emails on our website from current customers who were so excited to have the after-school programming available on Samsung.
It's really interesting because I think if you hear this excitement, and I know Evan sees it because we sit with a lot of creators and a lot of folks in the media business, and creators like Mark and Rishita have a different mindset. They see it, a sandbox. They're like, what can we build in this sandbox? Traditional media is like, how do we protect our business so it doesn't erode? And that's a dangerous place to be, is what I believe.
It's their only strategy, and it will defend them into non-existence.
Ryan, let me ask you, was there, as you started in this initiative with the creators and creating these channels, was there a lot of education to do with advertisers, or were people banging on your door?
Yeah, they were banging on our door, as many would assume. I mean, there's so many benefits to it. First and foremost is the authenticity of it, right? So you have authentic storytelling that they can easily align to. Second is the amount of loyal and passionate fan bases that these folks have that they can find their ways to weave into. And these consumers are consistently coming back, right? Finding more and more content, which gives marketers the opportunity to align more closely with it. So from a marketing standpoint, this is a huge opportunity. And as we continue to evolve and increase our partnerships, how do the brands now start to integrate organically into it, right? We know that organic integrations are going to drive more meaningful experiences for consumers with the brands. So, that's something Rishita and I were talking about earlier of how do we accelerate this and really start to pull brands in an organic way so that messaging to consumers is more a trusted recommendation than a traditional ad.
And more integrated into the content at the early stage.
This is not new. This has been around for decades and decades and decades. right? My time at HGTV and Food Network and Discovery, it was authentic storytelling by people who love to do food or home, decorating. It's the Martha Stewarts of 50 years ago. This is not new, and the model continues on. And there's just new players, new ways to do it, but the model is not different.
Martha's actually a good example. She saw this early. She was on TV. She had her magazine. She was everywhere. Yep. She had books. She had cookbooks. Ryan, let me ask you the brand safety question, which obviously a Mark Rober, you're not going to worry too much. But you have a range of content, and I know you have more in the works. How do you monitor that at a time, in a world where creators are coming out with things literally every day or, a couple times a week? Has that been a challenge at all to kind of navigate that in this early going?
Not really, and I think a lot of it goes back to Takashi, who in his agreements, right? Everything that lives within TV Plus is PG or lower. So, we're not necessarily taking on anything that's R-rated and things of that nature. So creator content, yes, you always have to be a little nervous about, but this isn't YouTube, right? It's not that level of creator content where anyone's just putting this up. These are built-in fan bases, built-in passionate fan bases, and creators that have elevated themselves to the status that Takashi goes and has those conversations and brings them on board.
And I think it's really important to understand that not only is this a different audience for the creators, this is a higher CPM than they're getting on YouTube programmatic, right? Because you have a sales group out there selling specific. So it is a completely different economic model as well.
Well, we look at it, this is why Samsung TV Plus is curated, right? We went and said, okay, Evan, we want to partner with you and Dar. We want to partner with you, Rishita, and Mark. Pull the lens back a little bit. What makes that? What's the common thread here?
Right, that's your
professional
pitch
TV.
Yeah, it's safe for television, right? We think about ourselves as a TV platform first and foremost, right? We think about safety for our audience and our viewers. And Rishita and Evan know this. We're very diligent about that. And so we don't just pick up whoever is on YouTube. We're very careful about how we curate and amalgamate our video service. So it's TV.
In the first conversation that Takashi and I ever had, he laid out this vision. And it was, we're going to rebuild television for the digital age. And if you look at, you are not today's version of HGTV, not exactly, but Discovery Networks, right? Dave and Conan are the version of late night television.
The late night
Starman is Disney, Sunday movie theater, to be honest with you. That's very much his content. That model has worked. By the way, the Angel Studios model I talked about earlier, also totally PG-13. So that broadcast model has worked for a long, long time. It will continue to work. It's about finding new audiences on new platforms wherever they are in order to make it work, to your point from earlier.
To make it additive. Rishita, can you talk a little bit more about what the exposure has done for Crunch Labs business? Is it encouraging you to expand into other areas or have Mark work with other creators? I believe that's something that you've been talking about.
Yeah, it's still a little early, but I think the biggest piece of the exposure that's been informative for us, particularly data-wise, is international. I mean, our homegrown D2C business has been largely U.S. focused, but we know we have this audience abroad, and now we are reaching them through Samsung TV Plus in an even greater way. So we are really excited to see what we can do from a product perspective to address all of those consumers in other markets. And as quickly as we can get through language assets for Takashi's team, we will. But we are already putting the rails in place to be able to deliver physical products and books and toys to all of these markets that we know are huge Samsung markets.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the metrics that matter? I mean, I think we know some of them, but in terms of, measuring all this multi-platform activity, including e-commerce and brand sales and stuff, how that alone must be, that's a challenge for a team of data science and I'm sure some AI tools, but can you talk about how you measure the effectiveness of content or just measure the growth of audience over time?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think measurement is challenging because everyone measures differently. And, for us, it's engaging our audiences. How do they, who do we think about content as ways to get to specific users and potential fans and to build fandoms. So how do we do that? If people aren't watching, it's not resonating with them. How do we find that viewer that wants to watch Mark's content that may not be on TV Plus at that moment. And I think one of the cool things about Samsung TV Plus is we're distinctly linear, but we have the ability to take content to find users, right? Traditional television, you put up a lineup and you're like, 8 p.m. Tuesday night, I hope we get an audience. We don't have that barrier, right? We can go 8 p.m. Tuesday night. We didn't find that one user that we wanted. Maybe they're there on a Sunday at 4 p.m. And we aren't bound by space and time, which is very interesting and a unique place for content to go find audiences as opposed to audiences finding the content.
And I think that's really crucial in that the last panel talked about that, or the previous group talked about that. We talked about this. How do you measure? It's going to be specific to the IP itself, to the platform itself, to the business model itself. Again, ad dollars probably isn't your top key KPI against some of your platforms. Sales of merchandise often is. And so that makes it far more difficult in an infinitely fragmented world to measure. If that sounds too hard, maybe do something else. Because that's the norm. That is now the new norm. You're going to have to think about merchandise and live experience and FAST and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok because they're coming to TV and all these other areas as well. If you can manage that kind of fragmentation and that kind of level of diligence around your community, then you can succeed. But if it seems like it's too much because it's way more complicated than before, this may not be the industry for you.
And what Ryan and I are going to do is we're going to change that for Mark and Rishita. We're going to make another pillar. If ads aren't the top of that heap, we are going to start working on that to make sure that we have we have a multifaceted monetization engine for Mark as well. And that's what we're here to do. Ryan's here to do. So we're going to work with our creators to enable that.
That does, though, for doing that for bespoke for creators. That does seem like a growth business. For we're asking where are the jobs going to go. I think we have a sense. Can I ask you, Ryan? Has the push into creators brought a different kind of advertiser? Have you expanded the overall pool of advertisers coming to Samsung TV Plus?
I think we've definitely seen an uptake in overall partners coming on, but I think the bigger one is they want more and deeper integration, as I said earlier. And the reality is consumers want it too, right? Because we've seen through research, 80% of consumers are more apt to engage with content as well as advertising if it's related to the content they're viewing, to the point that 40% of those users have said that they would then take an action on that brand. So it's all interconnected, right? It starts with the creator who builds their audience, and that audience is who brands and marketers are trying to reach and engage with. And if they can do it in a seamless and organic way, that's where everyone wins in this creator world in the future.
And with that deeper engagement, I'm sure is higher prices, but it seems like we're going beyond the CPM in this case, which had been a very kind of hidebound metric for a long time. Or would you say that's still the primary currency at this moment?
Still the primary currency for sure, but I think that you're starting to see kind of the myth that that TV is truly upper funnel, and it is really becoming a performance metric and medium for advertisers. And when you take in creator content and you start to align to that becomes even more and breaks down that myth even more, to the point where we're literally seeing performance on our platform equal, if not better, than social and mobile alone, which have historically dominated for creators.
And the recency, I mean, I got to believe that there's a class of advertisers that loves the recency of, television has always been faster paced than, say, film, but now the creators, I mean, think it up, it can be on your channel, it could be on your channel in hours. And for some people, that's got to be very appealing.
Well, I think there is that, right? There's two things that most marketers are looking to activate against and focus on. And first is the environment that the ads are being shown in, and creator content is a huge opportunity for them to do that. The second is just on the overall time spent and where consumers are. And you find that consumers are spending far more time watching on TV than they are on mobile devices, et cetera. So that gives the creators even more of an opportunity.
I dug into this recently, and I charted over the last year. By my estimation, FAST as an ecosystem is now larger than Netflix in the U.S.
That would not surprise me.
So, but that only happened this year, right? So I do think it's really important to understand how the shift is coming. I mean, the FAST ecosystem is scale now, and niche at the same time. That's what's cool about it.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Well, I think it's also the amount of time that's spent on a TV versus a mobile device, right, is a big piece. The second piece to that is not only are they spending more time, but this is also a lot more focused viewing as opposed to, you know, in a social environment, you're just seeing ads everywhere, you're scrolling and everything. This is tuned in, leaned in audiences, which I think is most important.
You know, given the discussion that it's really broadening, you're reaching new people, and you're seeing repeat business on TV. What's the next generation leverage of the value of that community, the dedicated community that you know has to Mark Rober, the dedicated community that goes to, you know, Conan's more recent content on digital and podcasts? Is there obviously IRL experiences are big. IRL, whether it's really IRL or a live stream of IRL, are there other things that are enabled now that you are able to reach, you know, kind of tap into that broader footprint of TV?
Yeah, I think for us, when we did the Jonas Brothers concert, we had the ability to ask the fans that were watching to vote on a song. Ryan mentioned this. And, you know, the brothers created a spot with us and said, vote for one of these songs that you want us to play at the live concert. And what ended up happening was about an 11x increase in click-through on something that was contextually relevant to the content, asking the user to do something, and then 20 minutes later, they saw a result on screen live. Right? It's a very small example of what the possibility of this platform is. And it's not just TV as we kind of saw it and know it and believe what TV is. We're excited about the future of television. And so when you know, I reach out to Rishita and Mark and the team, like, what do you guys think about this? Or if it's the Jonas Brothers, and say, how about this idea? And they're like, let's do it. Not many partners in the legacy business say, let's do it. Right? I'd love to try. And I think that lean in from our partners is what's going to make things special. We don't have the secret sauce for every piece of content for every user, but Rishita and Mark do for their user, and the Jonas Brothers do for their user. So when someone leans in like that and says, let's try it and see what happens, I think that's when magic happens. And that's what we're excited about, the future. I don't know. I really don't know what the future of television is going to look like. I don't think we would have predicted this 10 years ago, that we would be doing this and Samsung would be here. But here we are. So what does the next 5 and 10 years look like? We're excited about the opportunity, but it has to be lean in with our partners and open up the opportunity to test and experiment.
This is something we are incredibly excited about, just the opportunity to try different engagement models with our consumer, because it not just informs how they experience that piece of content, it actually informs what our program guide to be for the next year. So if we know people are really responding well to our squirrel series, we should probably do another squirrel video, and that's going to take time and investment. That's where some of the integrated brands are going to make sense and help accelerate that. But we have this opportunity to get more data earlier on and get feedback from our consumers and have like this dialogue with them so that we can quickly adapt our content, which is something traditional media just can't do because they have to plan so far out.
And the price point is just so much higher.
And I think that's exactly it, is the flexibility that marketers and brands have in partnering with the likes of you versus trying to go to the traditional route. There's so much more opportunity for test and learn, which is what's most exciting for myself and brands alike.
And I would add one thing. When you work with someone like Samsung TV Plus, which is the largest OEM on the planet Earth, I think, you come into a different experience. It's very hard to get attention. One of the best ways to sell media is in media, right? One of your biggest advertisers is probably the endemic media and entertainment group. So for a creator to go into an uncluttered, curated environment and be on the home screen of television itself, think about this, whether you're going to YouTube or Netflix or Samsung TV Plus or Tubi, the first screen that you see is yours, right? And when my daughter turned on her television last night, Letterman's channel was there, right there. It's so powerful. And then you offer that for a branded integration, holy smokes. It's the lead-in to TV. And that is a really exciting, I think, groundbreaking way to reinvent television.
And if I recall right, there's a lot of channels and business models to keep track of, but if I recall right, you have obviously Samsung TV Plus is baked into the Samsung television sets, which in and of itself is a really interesting distribution when you think about it. You know, when you think about that being the kind of home operating screen and the footprint being the footprint of television set sales. But then you also do have some content that is available to if you have a Sony or an LG, there is some Samsung TV Plus content that you can get over the air. How is managing that been as you go into more elaborate and more original and exclusive content partnerships?
Yeah, we've recently done a partnership with Roku where we syndicate some of our owned and operated channels, and we've always thought that there's a world where we can syndicate our channels and build our own brands and put them on other platforms. The TV universe is big, right? There's a lot of consumption, and there's a lot of hours that are consumed every day. And, whether or not we put Samsung TV Plus everywhere, right now for us, it's front and center on our devices. We're available over 600 million devices around the world. On every mobile device for the last many years. So you open up a Samsung device whether you're in India or in, Italy or France, you will see Samsung TV Plus there. And we're excited about that reach and global scale. And we haven't really talked about global as much, but more and more, as I talk to our partners, the global reach part is important and relevant. And Evan would know better than I, but I don't believe that there's that many partners that can publish content globally like we can on front and center on your device. So there's an interesting opportunity here for partners to say, oh, we want to reach a global audience. The Jonas Brothers, that was one of the big things that they were focused on, is how do we reach our global audience to folks that may not experience their content and their music. And even with Mark and Rishita, how can we get to other parts of the planet that their content may not have been found yet? Because we are curating, right? We're saying this is what you should watch, right, and you choose not to watch it, as opposed to other platforms are running it through a machine that's going to decide whether or not you may or may not want it. So the model's a little bit different, and I think that the opportunity to build fans is easier to do when we're curating. Again, maybe not for everybody, but when we're curating it and delivering it, and the user has a choice not to watch, is different.
Are you looking overseas for promising creators to do deals with in regional?
Oh, 100%. That market is enormous, right? There are many creators and talent around the world that have yet to be discovered here in the U.S. If you think about that opportunity, about bringing and importing fans and fandoms from other places here that we have yet to see, there's a lot of work from my team and I to do.
I did a panel at an event in France, in Cannes, with a French influencer, Enox Tag.
Enox Tag, yeah.
Oh my
Record-breaking
God. I never saw somebody mobbed so much on the Quasset. But he has obviously his digital business. He's advanced to feature film documentaries released in theaters. The world of possibilities.
The highest grossing documentary in the history of France.
And he was also just super charming.
Openings.
Really, really good. Well, my goodness, there's so much to talk about. This has been a really great discussion of where the world is going. Rishita, would you like to leave us anything coming up for Mark that you'd like to tease? Anything we should watch out for Mark or his content or Crunch Labs?
We have a really exciting year lined up content-wise, so definitely tune in. We usually drop every 6 to 8 weeks, but probably what we're most excited about this year is we're going to be partnering with Scholastic on a new line of books. So if you have kids at the Scholastic book fairs, keep an eye out for Mark.
Great partner for you. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. Really appreciate it.